Hello everyone and welcome to What Culture Horror. I'm Josh and today I've got some news for you because Leatherface is coming back with a brand new movie in 2021. Now, there were reports a little while ago that a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie was in the works, but it's now been officially confirmed with a brand new poster and a website that you can totally go to and check out. Though we're still light on plot details, it has been revealed that it will be a direct sequel to the 1974 original, which, if you're keeping count, is actually the third direct sequel to the original movie after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and 2013's Texas Chainsaw. Behind the camera, we know that David Blue Garcia is directing, with Chris Thomas Devlin writing the screenplay, and Evil Dead and Don't Breathe maestro Fed Alvarez is on to produce the flick. Now, I fully understand that I'm sitting here delivering you this news repping the entire wrong franchise, but I genuinely am looking forward to this movie and I really hope they do it right. But to celebrate the return of Leatherface, we've actually resurrected a really old video from the archives that is more than a bit appropriate. So let us know down in the comments what you think of the news, but for now, here's Ash Millman with 10 things you didn't know about Leatherface. Enjoy the video.
One of the OG slasher villains and creator of a luxury skincare range that's maybe a little too effective at face peels, Leatherface is the masked murderer that made chainsaws terrifying. With 9 movies under his bloody belt and a whole load of twisted continuities, it's probably best not to ask how old Leatherface should be, or what his real name is either, but the rest is pretty solid. Confusion aside, Leatherface is an icon of the horror genre who has fully utilised his chainsaw to carve out a place for himself in the Hollywood Hall of Fame. Strap on your skin mask and rev up your power tools, as I'm Ash from What Culture, and these are 10 things you didn't know about Leatherface. 10. Leatherface is based on Ed Gein. Most horror movies that bill themselves as true stories should be treated with skepticism, and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is no exception. No, apparently Leatherface wasn't real and nor were his cannibalistic family and the atrocities they committed, but a real-life murderer did inspire the series' protagonist. It's widely believed that the chainsaw-wielding maniac is based on Wisconsin killer Ed Gein, a man who fashioned macabre ornaments from human remains that he pilfered from local grave sites. Well, he might not be a chainsaw-wielding killer, but that's still not a remotely comforting true story. 9. Jason Voorhees briefly played him. 6 actors have played the adult Leatherface over the years, but the late Gunnar Hansen from the original movie is by far the fan favourite. Interestingly, the man best known for playing Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th series had a brief and unofficial stint behind the mask made from human flesh, whilst Leatherface the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 was shooting. Kane Hodder, who you'll probably only recognise when he's wearing a hockey mask, was the stunt coordinator on the 3rd entry in the series, and he stood in as Leatherface for former professional wrestler R.A. Mihailoff, while some of the more dangerous scenes were being filmed. What can I say? The man just loves dicing with death, whether it's stunts or cutting people up into tiny pieces. 8. Gunnar Hansen turned down the 2003 remake. When Marcus Nispel pressed ahead with plans to remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Michael Bay's studio in 2003, he hoped to bring the original Leatherface star Gunnar Hansen back to the franchise. Sounds nice, right? Wrong. Whilst this seems like the right thing to do, Hansen spurned the offer. Not because he was against the reboot, but because he wasn't offered the role of the masked killer. The late actor was sought for a cameo role as a truck driver at the end of the movie, an offer he called condescending and insulting in an interview with MovieWeb. Ouch. 7. Leatherface has fought Jason in comics. You've probably heard of Freddy vs. Jason, but Jason vs. Leatherface is generally only known by fans of obscure horror comic books. It's a 3-issue miniseries published by Topps Comics in the 1990s, which saw the nightmarish worlds of Friday the 13th and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre crossover, though it's considered non-canon to both series. The plot sees Jason board a train to Texas after Crystal Lake is drained of its radioactive waste, and what follows is a generic horror crossover, which has the 2 masked maniacs alternating between teaming up and battling each other. 6. He cameoed in Mortal Kombat. Not content with just fighting Jason, Leatherface is one of the guest characters in the 2015 fighting game Mortal Kombat X, and his penchant for murdering anything that moves makes him a good fit for a universe where gory fatalities are the order of the day. The killer wields a hammer as well as his trademark chainsaw, and comes in 3 variations based on the different masks and outfits he wears in the movies. Leatherface has his own storyline that sees him take a shine to Cassie Cage. In an attempt to win her affections, he slaughters her enemies before taking things too far and killing her friends too. When she eventually rebuffs his affections, because you know he's murdering everyone, he battles her Mortal Kombat style and makes her into chili con carne. Gosh, ain't that so Leatherface? What a charmer. 5. Alice Cooper shot a music video at his house. Alice Cooper obviously draws inspiration from classic horror films, which is no doubt why he chose to shoot the music video to his 1989 single House of Fire at Leatherface's abode. The rock star filmed the video on the set of Leatherface: The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and a number of props from the sequel can be spotted in the background. And there are some cool exterior shots of the Sawyer home too. Cooper himself can be seen breaking through windows and emerging from a trapdoor in true horror style, which you've got to think the Sawyer family would probably approve of. Or not, and murder him for trespassing on their property like they do with everyone else, but it's Alice Cooper. 4. The original Sawyer house is now a restaurant. Sticking with the various residences of Leatherface for a moment, his original home from the 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is now a restaurant trading under the name of Grand Central Cafe. Not particularly inventive, but alright. The building was located in Williamson County when the movie was filming, but was dismantled and moved to Kingsland after being bought by the Antlers Hotel in 1998. Replicas of the original house were painstakingly built as sets for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, and recent prequel Leatherface as well, while the 2003 remake and its prequel were filmed at the Hughes House in Granger, Texas. Now fully refurbished, the Antlers Hotel is open for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Just remember to stay away from the chili. 3. Leatherface has a daughter. Leatherface is typically depicted as having the mental age of a child, but he fathered one himself prior to the events of Leatherface: The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. In this sequel, and this sequel only, the masked maniac has a biological daughter referred to as Little Girl Sawyer. The creepy kid carries a doll named Sally, possibly a reference to the original movie's protagonist, which is actually the skeletal remains of a dead infant. Like father, like daughter. Little Girl Sawyer's ultimate fate is never revealed in the cinematic cut or extended cut of the film, but in a deleted scene, she can be seen being carted away in the back of a police car, which is probably for the best, really. 2. He made his video game debut in 1982. An adult-themed video game adaptation became a nightmare for Wizard Games in 1983 when the studio brought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to the Atari. Although the game was a primitive mess of pixels, those pixels were deemed offensive enough for most retailers to refuse to carry the game, and the ones that did stock it hid the thing under the counter. So it comes as no surprise that the first one to cast players as a chainsaw-wielding psychopath with no objectives beyond mass slaughter was sunk by controversy. Notoriety often boosts sales, but in Wizard Games' case, it took a chainsaw to them, and the studio was forced to close its doors in 1987, with the video game rights to Leatherface ending up elsewhere. 1. He's a walking metaphor for the Vietnam War. When somebody asks you what your favourite Vietnam War movie is, chances are you'll answer Apocalypse Now, Platoon, or Born on the 4th of July. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an equally viable response. Tobe Hooper intended the movie to be an allegory for the conflict and created Leatherface as a personification of what he perceived to be an overall decline in humanity in the 1970s. The movie was filmed in the foreboding shadow of events like Vietnam and the Watergate scandal, and the teens who were slaughtered by Leatherface represent the youngsters who lost their lives in the war. The visual horrors on show throughout represent the atrocities committed during the conflict as well. As strange as it initially sounds, Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw encapsulate the pent-up rage and discontent in post-Vietnam America. And that's our list. I've been Ash over on social media at Ash Millman, and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.